How are you?
I wasn't sure whether you were going to do this or Zoom. So
Yeah. Are you up for
Zoom? Call and tell me.
are you up for Zoom today?
If you want to, I don't care.
Great. Sign on. I just got on as I was calling you.
Okay.
If you're game. Great. Thanks. This is World University and Schools monthly business meeting on October 15th, 2022 at noon Eastern time. And Larry Veland on the phone here is going to get into the Zoom video conference as part of possibly even World University and Schools outreach, since this will be added to a World University and School YouTube channel. And you can see on
your ID, your Zoom ID has changed since last time.
Okay. So if you got a recent email, there's a new ID
Okay.
this morning.
Just a minute, to the point where I can type it in again.
Okay, great. In this little sticker I'm holding up is recent World University and School also outreach piece of information. And you can see at the bottom the budding WUaS educational services bookstores and robotic stores URL presently at the academic press at World University and School. Are you getting in, Larry?
No, I'm not getting in.
Okay.
I don't know why. I'm getting all kinds of other options, but not to get into yours.
Huh. Do you want to stick with the phone, or what would you think?
Well, at the moment, obviously stick to the phone because I'm clearly hearing you.
Okay.
So when I type WUaS Zoom,
yeah.
Open a new window, open a new, okay, I'll try open a new window. It says launch a meeting.
Are you getting the long URL either in the email I sent to this morning to you and everyone?
Oh, you sent one this morning. I'm sorry. Well, let's give up and just stay on the phone then.
Okay. Also, it's in the monthly business meeting agendas and agenda and news is the top link. But we'll stay on the phone for now. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Okay, great. So let's get in to this. There are a lot of agenda items. I think about 20 on World University and Schools nonprofit side, and A through G on the WUaS Corporation side.
Yeah, let's cut them down somehow again.
Okay.
Gotta go faster through them.
We got through a lot last 9/17/22, so maybe we can be more selective this time. More conversation. So the first agenda item has to do with how we might even slip in as ocw.mit.edu centric World University and School to rank #1, possibly in 2023 in the Times Higher Education World University and School rankings, which measures 13 major factors in universities, but they're in 4 categories. They measure teaching, research, knowledge transfer, and international outlook. You've shared a lot of Times Higher Education, or maybe also Chronicle of Higher Education articles over the years. The way I sort of see this is a possibility is for ocw.mit.edu centric in 7 languages wiki World University and School to slip into rank #1 would be in regards to teaching, be able to hire the best faculty. Could we find a way to get monies from a variety of sources, including departments of education?
Their questions to answer that are going to be, what percentage of your faculty have PhDs?
Great. Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I know what the questions are behind all those. The words you read are their highfalutin words. The reality is all they do is count things, and the thing they're counting here higher if you have your highest possible degree in each field.
Great. Yeah, interesting.
Well, we can't say that.
You mentioned one university dropping down to 18th recently, and maybe because they misrepresented the number of PhDs. I think
I never did read why they dropped so far.
Right.
But they reported facts, and one or more of their own faculty members got hold of it and checked it and found it was wrong.
Interesting.
And so they had to take it back, and that dropped them. And that's how sensitive these ratings are. It dropped them from 2nd to 18th.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, beyond that, I wonder about, in terms of hiring best faculty, not only number of PhDs, but also could we hire, for example, Stanford PhDs and MIT PhDs and Harvard PhDs?
There's no way for them to count that. So you can argue that they are, but that isn't going to help.
Well, maybe if we can hire postdocs, building on ocw.mit.edu, they will be significantly from MIT. Who knows? So second, research. And where I go with this in terms of possibly World University and School slipping into ranking #1 is with a realistic virtual Earth for STEAM focus: science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics.
No, what they count are published papers and grants.
Interesting.
I mean, this is what I told you before about these world, whatever these rankings are. They're just not valid.
Yeah.
And people can easily game them or not game them. So
interesting. Well, I would love.
Point of our trying to compete.
I would love to combine with that, and maybe even invite our faculty to publish papers from a realistic virtual Earth for STEM.
Once we have some faculty, that's fine.
Maybe get grants as well in Google Street View with TimeSlider. Who knows? Knowledge transfer. I see that as degrees. So if we can start graduating highest quality, high achieving students with high quality degrees, but also opening up the possibility to get degrees with new approaches to ocw.mit.edu on Google education platform. The degrees will be a way to quantify knowledge transfer. What do you think about that?
I think that's a fine goal. I think what they're going to measure, and this is why next year was way too early. They're going to measure is how your students did on the LSATs and the MCATs and all those other tests to get into graduate school.
Interesting. Yeah, I think those are something that if we're inviting students from other countries, there's been some talk even at MIT, I think I recall in the past year, of MIT waiving that.
That was for undergraduate admissions.
Okay.
Nothing was done for any of these schools about graduate admissions.
In the Society of Information Technology course I teach, I recall that California explicitly sought to quadruple the number of PhDs it produced in the 60s and 70s and even before. I think that if we want to increase the number of degrees that we create as measurable knowledge transfer, we may have to go in many directions, including inviting high SAT scorers, etc., but also opening the possibility for new creative approaches to education that also don't cost $1 zillion like SATs do.
Well, that's of course the question.
Yeah. The fourth measure that the Times Chronicle for Higher Education looks at is international outlook, and I'm not sure where Stanford or MIT or Harvard measure up in this particular survey and historically, but our focus on 200 countries and 7,000 languages certainly allows us to rewrite this category, maybe even. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that particular category, I think we could compete well on.
Okay, interesting. Great. So agenda item 1A, accreditation, a new accreditation opportunity with Middle States Commission on Higher Education. I noticed yesterday that Shadyside Academy High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is accredited by MSA, Middle States Association. It's a voluntary, peer-reviewed accreditation. It relates to Middle States Commission on Higher Education, but I'm curious to follow up more on how it might differ from the WUaS Senior in California, Western states.
Sounds like it would be focused on high schools, but I don't know.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I would think maybe the Middle States Commission on Higher Education would be for universities. So, but I think also that it could be great to have good words from Shadyside Academy for World University and School for free ocw.mit.edu centric degrees in the Middle States Association folks for the Middle State. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good aim for.
Great. 1B.
I don't want to
go ahead.
Any of the aims uses. I just say the reality is their questions are such that we won't be able to compete for a couple of years.
Yeah, 2023 is pretty early, but like impossible maybe to slip into rank #1, but maybe in a few years if we build out in a strategic way. Right now we're seeking this accreditation to possibly bring in thousands of more students for free bachelor, PhD, law, medicine, and IB degrees. And even right now, for students to matriculate in with CS First with Google at World University and School, the Creative Commons 4 course, learning Scratch programming. I'm curious how that will play out for Middle States Commission on Higher Education in terms of an application process. Any thoughts about that?
First question is, what are the qualifications of the teachers?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be hard to control.
I mean, we probably won't be able to give the qualifications that the 2,600 MIT OpenCourseWare courses faculty have, but that could hopefully be a little part of that.
Yeah, it would take some careful finessing.
Yeah, I mean, the language process is interesting because those faculty aren't, for example, employed by World University and School, and they're also not teaching directly in terms of knowledge transfer.
That's right.
1C, it was interesting the Middle States Commission for Higher Education recently had a conference with Kurdistan Ministry of Education. And it was brilliant. I was so glad to see this on Twitter because potentially in World University and School seeking accreditation with Middle States Commission on Higher Education, they're working with the Kurdistan Ministry of Education. Kurdistan has about 5 million people, I think, could open the way for us to develop accreditation for other countries that would be somehow appropriate and also get reimbursement from the Ministry of Education.
Yeah, I thought of that too.
And in the Kurdish language is a whole new sort of world for developing accredited World University and School degrees, probably for Middle States Commission as well as for World University and School. We haven't sort of figured out how to develop in other languages yet. 1D, in what ways can World University and School explore this accreditation specifically for September 2023, 11 months from now, possibly January 2023, but that seems way too soon, with even college counselors from Shadyside Academy High School to begin to matriculate on not only Shadyside Academy students for free university degrees, but also increase our numbers of potential matriculating students. What do you think about focusing on 2023 with Middle States Commission?
Well, I don't think that's nice, but I'm not sure what to do to focus on it.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like you got to get the students before you can attack Middle States.
Yeah, I've only looked briefly through their accreditation outline. Western Association of Schools and Colleges in California had a 3-stage process, and we couldn't become fully accredited and get the .edu domain until after we graduated our first 4-year class of. And I'm hoping Middle States Commission on Higher Education has a whole different process that could say we're provisionally accredited and therefore be an offering in all 50 states, high schools. Yeah.
I don't think they actually control the .edu.
Interesting.
I don't think in Western they can control. They may have tried to control it, but they can't.
Yeah.
There are places around Pittsburgh that call themselves EDU that you wouldn't think of as being colleges and universities.
Great. That's an early first question from my perspective. I learned what I think I said in 2013, and the whole world may have changed. If we could somehow, from an accreditation point of view, if we somehow could get, I'm calling it provisional accreditation, to make ourselves available to high school college counselors, could we also get the .edu at the same time, thanks to Middle States Commission, in contrast to maybe what was with WUaS, Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and BPPE. That's my hope.
Some organization that's in charge of domain names. And you might check, I can't remember the name now. If you check their website, you might find out there aren't any rules about EDUs.
Great. Yeah, that would be fascinating to learn. I think they were a limited resource for a while, in particular if we can be incubated by Google, and also in some ways with an eye to accreditation on a Google education platform. Maybe that would change things with the domain name people for .edu. We'll look into that more. Agenda item 2. So a new World University and School address and office in Pittsburgh. And thanks to you, Larry, in Pittsburgh. Interesting to see that there are, in the 4 letters that we got from the United States Postal Service, that though with verification codes, that those verification codes with your zip code can show a lot about World University and Schools addresses. It can it's sort of public information and interesting to see. Any thoughts about that?
The only new thing there is I think I got an email 2 days ago. I'm not on it at the moment, so I can't look, but I'll look later today and let you know. Something about this came from the post office wanting a response. I think it's more along the lines of giving my address. I have to acknowledge that you've given my address as the address to be used for World University.
Great. Interesting.
I don't think you can just pick some random person and forward all the mail to them without their approval. I think that's what this is about. Great.
Would you say that, are you saying that that was a paper letter or that was an email you got?
No, it's an email. I just haven't done anything with it yet.
Well, that's very confusing to me because I don't think they have your email, or at least I haven't ever given you their email through the USPS.
Well, they must have gotten it somehow.
Interesting. Great.
No, this is what I'm remembering.
Yeah.
There's some chance that it's wrong, but I'll look into it later today.
Okay. But other aspects of getting these 4 letters and changing 2 of them and not being able to change 2 of them have to do with the Canyon PO Box 442 in the San Francisco Bay Area, and possibly a World University and School office there up on the ridge with the address is being unchangeable at the federal United States Postal Office for that address up on the ridge. Fascinating. And that the United States Postal Service also says that this is a temporary move that could have my move to Pittsburgh for asylum even. Thoughts about all of that?
No, I think it may be temporary because you said something about 1 year.
Yeah.
Because you were thinking about going back.
Right.
And so all you have to do is make it permanent. You may have to send them another letter.
Yeah, you know, it says that this is the federal United States Postal Service saying that on two of the letters that the 86 Ridgecrest address is unchangeable and that it's part of World University and School. And I'm open to moving back to Canyon in September of 2023 if it is newly safe and verifiably so. But I'm also open to possibly staying in Pittsburgh. This USPS.
Point,
yeah.
You shouldn't try to reserve. In fact, they didn't let you reserve that address for a future move back.
Right.
Because from their point of view, somebody else could take that address legitimately, and you wouldn't have a place to go back to.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, out of this coding process, in another way, World University and School might get its first physical property in Canyon.
Okay.
But to be seen. But all of these things are brand new and from my perspective, fascinating and potentially great developments from the United States Postal Service, a federal organization. So agenda item 3, just the number of nations in the Olympics, which World University and School may seek to build out in as major universities, is 206 in the most recent Olympics, 2020, I think. And by way of comparison, I think the US State Department and the United Nations have updated their websites because there are 196 entities or countries in the US State Department's list newly. And there are 193 member states on the United Nations list newly, I think, too. Fascinating, especially if we could begin to work with the US State Department.
Yeah, well, don't hang up on the numbers. These are political decisions as well. I mean, you mentioned Kurdistan, but nobody recognizes Kurdistan as a country.
There are also nation state law or legal issues in addition to being political in that sense. Right. And that law question, if we, whatever territories that are in the 206 nations on the Olympic list that are not member states or countries or nation states, they also have budding legal process that I think I would like World University and School to engage. I think that would be a good defense for ourselves in some ways in those, 10 countries, 10 territories or nations that weren't states, for example. So I won't get hung up on the numbers. Thank you. It all becomes information technology when we get to those big numbers for these states, nation states. Agenda item 4. So how best to rock and roll metaphorically for making really flourishing education beyond Creative Commons 4, CS first with Google, and maybe with thinking in terms of Google education groups in India. So I'm thinking maybe beyond Stanford University, by way of comparison with MIT even, because I think MIT is stronger and maybe one of the most rigorous STEM universities in the world. But I think Stanford did something different in terms of a sort of rock and roll approach to education. How can we do so even more and in new ways with World University and School in all 200 countries and all 7,000 languages?
I think this is a good question for when we get enough teachers and or students to worry about the contents of our MIT-based courses.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's way too early to worry about the quality of the courses because we can't control them yet. So when we get to that stage, we can worry about it.
Great. I mean, I'm sort of thinking in terms of brainstorming wise, if you added all the 2,600 courses from ocw.mit.edu to a Google platform, which is different from CS First with Google at World University and School, a single course, how would things change with the ocw.mit.edu? And
well, nothing could change until we get an ability to change it, right? As long as we're delivering those MIT courses, we can't control it.
Well, I'm hoping also in some of these regards, in terms of you're mentioning needing more students, that the Google Education Group's GEG India, with India's 22 official languages, could, with Sundar Pichai as the CEO of Google and Alphabet, could open a whole new way to thinking about bachelor's degrees, building on CC4 ocw.mit.edu and building on and maybe departing from too CS First with Google at WUaS Scratch programming course. My hope, that's a rock and roll direction I see potential for, because I don't think students coming out of India high schools would gravitate easily to online MIT OpenCourseWare courses for 4 years for free degrees.
No, they're not used to having to think independently and do things independently like we should assume.
And the STEM aspect that, I mean, MIT has, of course, humanities and arts and languages, but
right.
There's a rigor there with the STEM that I think many high schools that get students into MIT, if you want to call it that, excel at, I mean, and have sort of focused on for years, decades, and that's a whole new world with India and 22 languages, maybe. MIT isn't scalable, maybe in the same way that World University and School might be, hopefully becoming. So, agenda item 5, some new developments from TensorStore, which Sundar Pichai described as breakthroughs. Some new developments with rather Imagen, IMAGEN, and Phenaki, PHENAKI at Google, that relate to the TensorStore Google AI software. And these have to do with working with images in very interesting, complex, and potentially Harbin Hot Springs oriented ways too, with data being stored in tensors that in TensorStore. And additionally, the new Google Tensor chip will be able to work with tensors, which are structures of vast amounts of data that are.
First thing, we have to be careful. I don't know what the word tensor means. I know as a mathematician what a tensor is, but that has nothing to do with what you're describing, which means from the other point of view, people using that word have to explain what they mean by it. And I don't think that word is going to survive very well.
Well, I think I've described it as structures of data, large structures of data. And here's a definition mathematically, an object analogous to, but more general than a vector, represented by an array of components that are functions of the coordinates of a space. And I'm not sure if that word will survive very well or not, but also Google's 7-8-year-old TensorFlow artificial intelligence, which is a successful build out of AI around tensors, is And
I don't think the average user needs to be aware of that word, nor do I think they are.
Perhaps, and yet Google is using it with TensorFlow AI and with TensorStore.
Well, the very fact that I'm sitting here questioning it compared to the fact that you're saying it's been around for a few years means they're not doing a very good job of selling us, are they?
How computer science moves forward sort of with computer science public, even matriculated students, may be an opportunity for education for World University and School. We'll see, for our students.
Okay.
At the top of Viren Jain's, VIRENGAIN, Twitter feed at *Dazed0, I think he's originally from India, or his parents are some fascinating objects that could become human forms, and they relate in that same image to cubes of possibly data, cubes of TensorStore data, possibly. An interesting way to envision maybe how Tensor data might be stored in cubes within cubes and relate to physical objects in a virtual Earth. Interesting to see how these are being represented on Twitter in general as computer science develops in these new ways, I think. I'm wondering whether we could develop them for avatar bot electronic medical records, whether these forms on Viren Jain's Twitter header feed could be related to cubes of data for individuals, for all 7.9 billion people, and for their genetics. So,
well, the possibility is there, but the reality is human nature is every organization and every group of people is going to choose their own things to be in their own cubes of information, as you will, and then the cubes are not going to be compatible when the whole thing will break down. That's my prediction.
Great. Yeah, interesting. I'm wondering.
Do you need the address, for example?
What?
Do you need the name? Do you need the middle name? Do you need the doctor's name? There's so many yes/no decisions that each organization, at least in the U.S. tradition, makes its own decision and puts its own block together. So I'm just not very positive about that.
Maybe we'll be able to make available avatar bot electronic medical records for 7.9 billion people to hospitals in all 200 countries. But another aspect of this is, and there was another Twitter post recently about us being able to access our own electronic medical records. Interestingly, is if you had these Viren Jain's forms connected to these cubes of TensorStore for data, and if they were about genetics, and we were all able to edit our own avatar bot electronic medical records for our own genetics in an open source way, would you get more people involved in the drag and drop editing of their own avatar bot?
My answer is that, again, is going to be no.
Yeah.
And the reason is very clear. We have experienced already in the last 5 years insurance agencies and other people accessing the data legally or illegally and making decisions based on your data that they're not supposed to have access to. All
of those, maybe our law schools will be addressing these questions too on the open source side.
Well, that's going to be a while. I mean, there is already a My UPMC account that has information about all my appointments and about all my recorded history, etc. And each time I go visit a doctor, there's an email to me saying, please check into my UPMC account. And every time I don't do it on purpose.
Right.
And I think I'm not the only one that's going to have that attitude, at least in the U.S. Too many bad actors get access to data they shouldn't get. Interesting.
Well, if World University and School can further develop with Google and Alphabet, it would be through Google's Verily, which is its medical health organization. And how that, and possibly through Stanford Medicine too, how that develops on the sort of open source side and for the genetics side are all questions I'm wondering about. So here's agenda item 6, and it relates, it's financially oriented. Thank you, Larry, for coming over here to my place in Pittsburgh and helping link the for-profit general stock Wells Fargo bank account with the Franchise Tax Board's, with our WUaS exempt legal entity for World University and School in the California Franchise Tax Board. Sorry, I'll say that again. Thank you, Larry, for coming over here and helping to link the World University and School Wells Fargo bank account X9028, which is the for-profit side, with the WUaS State of California's FTB count generation process for the WUaS Corporation, the for-profit in the FTB. We're still waiting to hear and paying the $21.04 through that linkage of the one bank account with the WUaS Corp FTB information. On the other side, the exempt World University and School legal entity side in California, as we know, the FTB cashed the $65 check in July, but we're waiting for the letter perhaps to come that says we can link the exempt World University and School California legal entity with our exempt bank account X5389. Any thoughts on getting that paper letter or what next steps with that?
California seems to work extremely slow.
Yeah.
It took them about 6 or 8 weeks to cash a check. Come on.
Right. Well, my thinking there is that we would then be able to work fully operationally as a nonprofit 501c3 when the exempt.
Well, sure, you could do everything electronically except the taxes. We're already able to do everything electronically except the taxes.
On the exempt World University and School legal entity in California with the Wells Fargo exempt bank account. That's all that's partly California oriented, but our 501c3 status is federal, and we may be able to fundraise when finally the California allows us to link those two together. My hope. Maybe. And maybe with Brakely Briscoe, I don't know, possibly, or a lot of other organizations. So 20 minutes left. I'm going to skip agenda item 7, a realistic virtual earth for surgery, possibly with Google Verily and Johnson & Johnson, and with Avatar Bot electronic medical records in TensorStore. Agenda item 8, Naked Harbin Ethnography book, published in 2016, first book in the academic press, is a milestone, and we're still not able to enter into a realistic virtual Harbin hot springs in Google Street View with Time Slider. But as it comes into conversation with n-dimensional processes that Peter Norvig explores in a YouTube video called Norvig, We Are Seduced by Our Low-Dimensional Metaphors, there's a remarkable opportunity to develop a realistic virtual earth for STEM that is n-dimensional, also emerging out of a realistic virtual Harbin hot springs and Google AI and TensorStore. Skipping to agenda item 9, WUaS incubation in Google in Bakery Square, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 6 big incubation ideas related to the 6 World University and School Twitters, each of which have about 2 or 3 sub-incubation ideas. We haven't heard back from our direct outreach to Peter Norvig, but I continue to be optimistic. And after going to Shadyside Academy's homecoming yesterday too. Agenda item 9A, Partly I'm optimistic because there was an interesting overview of Google innovation and how it works in a TechCrunch article, where Google has 174,000 employees and they closed the research and development group and moved some of their projects to other Google R&D groups. Maybe we could become one of those groups. Agenda item 9B, I'm going to skip Magnificent Frigate Bird, which has a lot of interesting ideas in the blog post. 9C, the tensor chip. When that comes along in an iterative way, maybe in the Pixel 8 smartphone, maybe we'll be able to hop into a realistic virtual Harbin hot springs from our home bathtubs. This all relates to tensor store, tensor flow AI, tensor chip development. Agenda item 10, interesting overview, that's the same, TechCrunch. Agenda item 11, spectacular coding of releasing Drosophila hemibrain connectome, the largest synapse resolution map of brain connectivity, has in a Drosophila fly. It has many implications for a realistic virtual Earth for brain science, I think. 11A, in what ways can World University and Schools Academic Medical Center with WUaS Longevity Genetics Institute, potentially on the Ridge in Canyon, California 94516, begin to collaborate with CIRM, the Center for Integrative Regenerative Medicine in California, and stem cell research, and regarding a realistic virtual Earth for genetics and longevity genetics and aging reversal genetic drug therapies, brain related too. I hope it'll all come together. 11B, in our remaining 16 minutes, continuing to search on Harvard Medical School and MIT Professor of Genetics George Church aging reversal genetics research for breakthroughs. I attended a Stanford drug symposium conference this past May, I think, online. And there was one example of mice that seemed to have newer fur or coat, part of it. And I wondered even whether it was spurious or false evidence, whether it was contrived, I remember at the time. And I never could find in the release of the conference videos that particular presentation. But the breakthroughs is sort of what I'm focusing on. It would be very useful after George Church's remarkable heralding of aging reversal genetics drug therapies potential.
Well, it's a bad sign that you can't find the conference proceedings. That means somebody forced them out.
No, they sent out the conference proceedings. I rewatched a number of them, but the one with the mice example was not there. And it made me,
yeah, well,
that's
what I mean is a bad sign. That means they either withdrew it or somebody forced it off or whatever, or they didn't follow the guidelines or something.
Or it could be a good sign that they're culling out bad science or.
Yeah, well, that means what you're wanting there was bad science. I don't know.
Well, if you can get the experiment starting to show the coats of mice getting younger or the vision in mice getting better as the mice age over their 2-year lifespan, which is great science, which we haven't seen yet, I think. That would be super. Maybe Stanford eliminated some bad science. I don't know. Agenda item 12 in the few remaining minutes we have. So I'm wondering about Scotland World University and School and knowledge generating free degrees, even to form a possible economic plan. If Scotland is going to vote for a sovereign Scotland, maybe in 2026 or 2023, is there a way we could, with the MIT OpenCourseware, help chart a course to economic sovereignty and offer these free degrees to Scottish students and get reimbursement from the Scottish Parliament because our courses showed the way for Scotland to be economically sovereign into the future. Any thoughts about that?
Well, you just keep your eye on it because you don't want to get involved in politics too early.
Right. I mean, it would be, there's a very pragmatic aspect of MIT engineering and MIT's thinking in general with its STEM focus. It hasn't necessarily been applied to, I mean, it's been applied to the developing world, to Africa, to African countries, but how it might be applied in the specific instance, for example, of Scotland is an interest. I'll keep my eye on it. I'll stay out of politics. So agenda item 13, a Japan World University and School in Japanese, and 200 universities in a realistic virtual Earth for STEAM. The MIT professor Hiroshi Ishii continues to post fascinating book titles about MIT in Japanese on Twitter that sort of illustrate to me that he, as a Japanese MIT professor, has kind of got the MIT idea for Japan in brand new Japanese ways, and expresses this more clearly than many other people about MIT courses in any other country or language. Hopefully, his thinking will be something World University and School can expand on or extend. There was a recent talk by a UC San Diego student from Singapore, Eugene Chua, in Harvard philosophy on the physics of time. I think it was titled "The Time in Thermal Time." We talked about this at your place.
Yeah.
The question is how, from my perspective, how to code for time in a realistic virtual Earth. Think Google Street View with time slider. There are many physics of time. There are many philosophical approaches to the science of time. Thermal time has a one-way forward directionality, I think you confirmed.
Yes.
And how to maybe code for this with TensorFlow AI, even for aging reversal genetics. If you can go forward, can you go back? Can you connect it to genes? The philosophical question of how to code for time could also be a philosophical pragmatic question. Pragmatism might be a very germane approach to thinking about how to code for one aspect of time physics-wise in a realistic virtual Earth. My hope. What do you think?
Okay. I'm less hopeful than you are, but let's go on.
Well, the Google Street View with time slider, that little time slider in front of the Harbin Hot Springs gate, which goes from 2007 to 2012 and back, is a very weak instantiation of time. In 2007, you have this vintage fire engine in front of the Harbin Hot Springs gate. In 2012, it's gone. But in that move of 5 years, there's an implicit vision of the physics of time. And I think that could be much, much more sophisticated with all that we know from physics about time, as well as philosophy-wise. So possible working with a realistic virtual Earth and YouTube adding to a realistic virtual Earth for learning a musical instrument. Could I play with the classical music piece An Orkney Wedding with Sunrise on my Scottish small pipes YouTube recording to learn it? And then could we make it more interactive through new YouTube technologies, such as a 3D onsen hot spring in YouTube, which is more sophisticated YouTube technologies that lead towards 3D and interactivity and immersion for learning a musical instrument. Lots of potential, I think, in very innovative ways. Agenda item 15, WUaS news and question answers continue on Monday mornings at 10. The recordings are posted here, many about incubation by Google at Bakery Square, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Agenda item 17. This is a very visionary agenda item: how to grow cultures and societies of free universal education in 7,000 languages and of learning that could be transformatively positively of Pittsburgh and the San Francisco Bay Area and California societies that might lead to asylum seeking. Could education open a way out of abolitionist 1862 Emancipation Proclamation thinking and the free public K through 12 education in the US in 1960s civil rights, for example? Could we create a Stanford University in the 1960s and 70s in Pittsburgh, online in the 2020s, and out of Shadyside Academy somehow too, is the vision, via an iterating internet in a realistic virtual earth? Thoughts about all of that ginormous?
No, it's too far beyond my thinking. You're good at speculating about things like that, but to my mind, that's just too many years in the future.
It's a question of culture too, and yeah. Can education change culture? So agenda item 18, is it possible to use Google Nest, which is a Wi-Fi boost router that individuals can put into their home for everything, for web cameras, for security, for making their house more interactive and digital, as a realistic virtual earth for history? And it's sort of like the Alice in Wonderland idea. Could we all begin to go down sort of the rabbit hole of Google Nest in ones and zeros, into a realistic virtual earth for history? Could we save photos from our kids' upbringings through, all the years that they were in the house, somehow through Google Nest in a realistic virtual earth for history, but in so many other ways? It's a bit far down the road too, but it's an interesting possibility. The wiki idea of World University and School as a possible way for people to engage their minds at age 135 is a great opportunity too. If Pittsburghers, all 300,000, could start teaching about things they love on our wiki schools to YouTube, cool. Agenda item 20 in the 6 minutes remaining. So Imogen and Funaki, could we create a realistic virtual earth for evolutionary biology in Google Street View with Time Slider at the cell and molecule level? And then lastly, regarding the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, your field, Larry, interesting video from Helena Lundberg in Sweden, part of the Nobel Committee on Chemistry, about click chemistry. How could we add this to a realistic virtual earth for chemistry, for STEM at the molecular and even the cell level, and with Lego robotics, such as the edgerton.mit.edu/molecule-sets of Lego robotics kits, molecular Lego robotic, or molecular Lego kits, not robotics. Well, did Jeremy ever play with such kits? Do you know, your son?
No, he's too old for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't really available when he was a child. So.
Right.
The grandchildren may. I don't keep track of that.
Okay. So moving in the last 6 minutes to the other wing, WUaS Corporation, WUaS Press. So we've talked about agenda item A a little bit, which is linking the for-profit Wells Fargo bank account with the WUaS in the WUaS My FTB account with the for-profit legal entity in California, the WUaS Corporation. That's momentous and a huge step. We can now pay taxes. I'm not sure if we should be happy about that, but it's now easy. But it also suggests that the Franchise Tax Board is making advances, and I'm hoping they're making advances with possibly Stanford MinePi cryptocurrency and the Franchise Tax Board, and possibly with the Silicon Valley Long-Term Stock Exchange and the Franchise Tax Board, and that we could even list the WUaS Corporation on the long-term stock exchange in California in partnering with Stanford MinePi cryptocurrency, all through the Franchise Tax Board. Nation states would be able to buy maybe their cryptocurrency through the WUaS Corporation, the 19 out of 28 countries in the Eurozone, for example. Thoughts about any of that?
It's all possible, but I don't see it happening, but it's possible.
Okay. After at Shadyside Homecoming yesterday, I was talking about this to some people on the Shadyside Academy Alumni Council, mentioning the Stanford MinePi cryptocurrency and WUaS Corporation, and Neha Narula, the MIT Digital Currency Initiative, DCI Executive Director. Later that day, she posted for the first time on Twitter in a long time that @Neha is her only Twitter feed address, @NEHA, as if there may have been people creating fake Neha Narula.
Yeah, everything gets ruined by somebody doing strange, illegal things.
But it's interesting that I'm wondering if she's sort of playing a role of clerk in defining technical and security and cryptocurrency issues into the future, and whether that could even be helpful to the WUaS Corporation, to be seen. Okay. Agenda item B. So could we be incubated on the for-profit side by Google at Bakery Square in 1 year, and get a whole bunch of things working in Google's infrastructure and Google's information technology, along with accreditation. And especially Lego robotics stores, which I think Peter Norvig has a big interest in with his Lego Robotics 2 Institute. And in the picture in the agenda news from Lego Education, there's a great new direction for, I think, World University and School's Lego Robotics, WUaS Home Robotics, of a skier, little Lego bot skier landing on a ski slope, which is actually kind of a crane which lifts up, and skiing down it. Not only could our students make this crane-like ski slope, learning all the STEM principles in that, but they could also create the videos to make it much more interesting, and do this for assignments, for example, and projects. Cool possibility. Thanks to Lego Education for the innovation. Agenda item C, humanoid robots in daily life in Japan, 2022. There are a few. They're still primitive. In Korea, also a few, still primitive. MIT humanoid robots, when I searched on that, there was a grid. So the modeling, the virtual reality of it was significant in what came up in that Google search. I think we can do a lot with World University and School's realistic virtual earth for robotics and for Lego robotics. So could we develop humanoid robotics out of a realistic virtual earth for Lego robotics? And with your mentioning the possibility of flipping houses, maybe for faculty and students in Pittsburgh, could we build in a humanoid robotics aspect? Where in the Toyota THR3, Toyota Humanoid Robot 3, with its remarkable chair master maneuvering system, maybe for programming and coding the THR3 physical robot by a human, could we begin to help code such humanoid robots for flipping houses and for doing math and for teaching musical instruments and for teaching surgery? And could we also, this is a new idea from via a text message from Tim Lenderking, Special Envoy to Yemen in the US State Department this morning. Could we make them happy? He wrote that the book by Ishiguro on robotics called Clara and the Sun is a bit melancholic. And I wondered whether we could make happy robotics. What do you think?
Yes, I don't know enough to be able to answer that.
Okay. Well, in the agenda news, I added 2 houses for under $100,000 that are in 3 miles radius of Penn and Fifth. And maybe our happy humanoid robotics, THR3s, could go out and help flip those kind of thing is the idea. Agenda item D, I know we're 3 minutes over, but we're almost there. The realistic virtual Earth for robotics is where all of this might emerge from, and glad to be an authorized carrier of 3 Lego robotics kits. Agenda item F is also about my FTB account for the World University and School in the state of California, and maybe coding for the nonprofit and waiting for the Silicon Valley Long-Term Stock Exchange and Stanford MindPie's relationships with the Franchise Tax Board. So I guess that's about it. I guess the last one is maybe you could say that the WUaS Press is going to release a new album of Scottish small pipes bagpipe music called Honey Pibroch in December. This is on the for-profit side, but this isn't necessarily for-profit. Any thoughts about all of that on the WUaS Corporation side, particularly?
No, I think we're making progress.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Larry Wieland, so much. Thank you for your hospitality recently as well, on behalf of World University and School especially, and the WUaS Corporation. And we'll talk soon, I hope.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, and bye for now. So that's World University and School's monthly business meeting on Saturday, October 22nd, on October 15th, 2022. The next monthly business meeting will be November 17th. It's open. This will be, recording will be saved to youtube.com/Scott McLeod World University. For further outreach, check out the emerging robotics educational services store at WUaS on the sticker I'm holding up, and WUaS News and Question and Answer on Mondays will happen again this Monday, October 17th, 2022, in Zoom chat. Stay tuned to the Twitter feed, twitter.com/WORLD UNIVANDSCH. For the information about how to get the chat URL. I'm Scott McLeod, and that was Larry Wieland on the phone. Inviting people to join this open monthly business meeting if interested, loosely conducted in the manner of unprogrammed Quakers. And until next time, see you soon. Thanks for engaging World University and School. Bye for now.